Better. I didn't realize I had green on my shirt, so it's like keying out, which is kind of funny. All right, let's just do this. This is my formal intro, right? The intro to the stream is always a little more casual. This is the formal intro. Ready? And welcome everyone to the Big Brain Relax and Learn lecture, as I've come to call it, here on this wonderful whatever day it is. My name is FPSkra, and I am a professor and attorney who likes to talk and expound upon things and has to do it for class. So I've decided to create this sort of forum where I will talk on the subjects that I need to talk about and play a game that is loosely related to the topic that I am to talk about. And tonight, our topic will be political participation. And the game that I have chosen to represent that loose relationship to that topic is, in fact... Oh, son of a bitch. I forgot to link the game in the source. There it is. It's Fallen Order. Is what we are returning to Fallen Order in order to talk about political participation. Oh, I guess I'll throw this little bit in. I'm going to be one of those assholes too that asks you at the beginning of the video to please, if you like this content, subscribe, like, smash the bell, and all that nonsense, because it helps me out, helps the channel out, and it allows me to continue to do this because I enjoy doing this. And if you enjoy me doing it and would like to see more, show your appreciation. Leave a comment, leave a like, leave a subscribe. All right, let's give a little sum up while we load into the story. Why won't the controller work? There it is. So, the topic for today, political participation. Okay? Talking about participation in the political process. And we will get into what exactly we mean by participation. But we will be covering topics such as citizenship and the way that the dynamics of power are related to to participation. We will be talking about the ways that one can participate and the typologies of different political participators. And of course, we will try to link it to this lovely video game that we are playing tonight. So, first thing is first. Ooh, there's a Beastie Boy there. All right, I'm gonna, let's see. I'm gonna have to remember the controls. Hold on. I believe if I do this, if I just run at him, and I go, oh, come on. Oh, jeez. There. Okay, I killed him. We're good. All right. First thing we're gonna talk about. I don't even remember where I need to go. All right. We need to talk about, when talking about political participation, one of the first questions that always comes up is who can participate, right? And generally speaking, oh, we just gotta go back to the ship. Okay, word.
Go, no doubt.
Word. Generally speaking. Come on. Yeah, there we go. Ow.
Someone else get up here!
And come on. Come on. There we go. And ow, we got hit. Generally speaking, when we talk about who can participate, we are referencing a classification of persons within a nation, right? Now, that classification is sometimes labeled as citizenship. But citizenship is, I mean, relatively speaking, because he's an evil droid, citizenship is relatively speaking a new concept. And by new, I mean like it's about 250 years old or something like that. So obviously 200 some years, that's old.
Do not concern yourself with the missing artifact.
When it comes to, oh, I can rest here too. When it comes to, in the span of human history, 200 years is a fairly recent affair, okay? So citizenship came about around the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was that period of time in which it seemed that all of the countries were undergoing revolution, including the US, France, right? Russia started a little bit later. What do we want to choose? So citizenship, however, comes around the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment was based around this concept that human beings could rule themselves based on reason, knowledge, and understanding of the social condition. It was the idea that no longer were people going to bow to monarchs and kings simply because they said they had to, but people can choose to rule themselves. And thus you needed to kind of classify, again, who are the people that we're going to allow to rule themselves, right? Who will have a voice? And it kind of came into the idea that there should be people who are allowed to participate and people who aren't allowed to participate. And for the most part, come on.
Come on, hit him.
No, you're not.
Shooting at the target.
Oh, Jesus. What kind of Jedi are you, pal? Where are all these people coming from? Come on.
Stormtrooper down. Oh, no.
So, this idea of citizenship came up. So, but what is citizenship, right? Now, there's a couple philosophers have made some words on it, and one of our favorite that we've talked about quite a few times in this class is Marx, Karl Marx. That Marx, right? Well, Marx believes that citizenship was basically just a concept to obscure the dynamics of class. As opposed to, Marx believes that society was split up into the ruling class and the proletariat, the working class. Well, as a result of that, and I died. But Marx believed that really it's just these two classifications of people, and trying to say that there are now citizens within those two, and it's the citizens that get to participate. He's just saying, no, that's just trying to set up a third wonky class that doesn't actually exist. Right? That was Marx's view on it. Now, of course, there are other views on it. One of them being that citizenship is actually is necessary for a democracy. Ooh, Jesus. Oh, I killed it. And now these guys are going to come after me? What the hell, man? There is, again, this idea that you need citizens in order for a democracy to flourish, because a democracy, a nation needs legitimacy. A government needs legitimacy. And if a democracy, which is supposed to be said to be ruled by the people, you needed some sort of legitimate group of people to give it that legitimacy. Citizens were kind of decided to be that people. However, there are also, you can kind of really split it up into two different types of citizen. There's the political citizen, which is the one that is allowed to participate in the political process. And then there is the social citizen. And the social citizen was more like the idea of, okay, I consider myself an American citizen, right? But I am simultaneously a political citizen in the sense that I can vote and do vote, but then I'm also a social citizen in the sense that I'm kind of, proud to be an American and all of that nonsense, right? Let's frame it for the non-Americans in the audience in terms of the Star Wars universe here, right? Cal can be considered a probably neither, because he is an outlaw from justice, if you will. Push that through. Oh, come on, you missed that? Because he is an outlaw from justice. He is not allowed to participate, and nor does he probably consider himself a member of the Empire. Now, prior to the Empire,
before the dark times, before the Empire,
he probably was both, right? Jedi were absolutely political citizens in the sense that they were part of the government for the most part, right? They were like the police force. Oh, that's where that goes. citizens. Gotcha. Cool. But they were also social citizens because they consider themselves members of the Republic, guardians of the Republic, if you will. Now, as the Empire, it's a little different. Probably not. Ooh, this is their first time fighting one of these boys. Okay, yeah, these guys are hard, especially these gun types.
There you are.
Oh boy, he's kind of kicking my ass.
Seer, I just took.
So that's sort of citizenship in a nutshell, though. We talked about there's a couple different types of citizen. What it is, right, isn't necessary for democracy. I mean, you kind of determine that for yourself. Citizenship has been played with a lot in popular media. What comes to mind is the Starship Troopers, where it's the whole idea is that citizenship comes with service, right?
Young people from all over the globe are joining up to fight for the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part too.
They're doing their part. Are you? Join the mobile infantry and save the world. Service guarantees citizenship.
Different nations have different standards for citizenship. In the U.S., right, you're a citizen as long as you're born on U.S. soil. In other nations, maybe you need to, serve in the military for a certain period of time. That's the Starship Troopers thing. I'm doing my part, right? But citizenship, the requirements for it, and then what it allows is different from nation to nation. But it is an important part in political participation. So let's move on, right? Because this whole little lecture here that we're talking about is about political participation. So let's get into participation, right? And specifically, though, I need to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is the topic of power. Hit it! So, but we're going to talk about power, and specifically the frameworks of power. If you'll remember from the previous Big Brain Relax and Learns, we have different frameworks of power, 3 primary that we are talking about. I'm going to have to jump in the water. Just as a little aside, I love this area of this map because, it's a crashed Venator class Star Destroyer. And, I mean, there's a lot to explore here, really. There really is. But there's, old Arc 170s that are crashed here. That's a Venator class Star Destroyer that you have to walk through later on in the game. It's such a cool area. So that was a side over. Back to the lecture.
I gotta go.
When it comes to the frameworks of power, right? There are 3 of them that we have discussed before, and we'll continue to discuss because they play a role in nearly everything. And they are the pluralist framework, the elite managerial framework, and then, of course, Marx's class framework. Elite managerial and class are generally categorized together, and pluralist is categorized on its own. And if you'll remember, generally speaking, democracies, kind of, the ideal is pluralism. Pluralism, again, being the idea that power is distributed amongst different social groups throughout a society, right? Power is shared amongst the different institutions, public institutions, civic institutions, governmental institutions.
What could have caused
Well,
such a thing?
when it comes to political participation, the pluralist power says that, yeah, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. You have these different institutions, these different groups, and they each participate within the political process, a little bit differently, right? They participate in activism. They participate by lending, support behind individuals. The pluralist idea of participation is that it is essential to the democratic system. And it rests on the idea that the system is open and influenced by the voter. Is that true? Is that the case in America? Is that the case in whatever nation you exist in? Let me know in the comments. Because one can argue that, all right, yeah, of course, it's, the government is influenced by the voter. But in the same breath, you can kind of say, or you can look to certain examples, and I'm going to use America as an example, and then I'll use the Republic here in the Star Wars universe as an example. Politicians or elected officials are supposed to be influenced by the voter, right? Meaning they're supposed to be exercise the will of the people, right? They're elected so that they can support those individuals' desires. Well, all you need to do to kind of refute that the idea that pluralism is active, right? And this is an argument that I'm making, and one that I think can receive a decent amount of support. Oh, look at this guy's fighting. Is that, all right, so Troy brought up the Republican Party. Come on, come at me, bro. Boom! Oh, shit. Okay, no, wait, I can push this back. Wait, Rocket's gonna come at me. Boop! Oh, that's so fun. The Republican Party, right, overwhelmingly votes against things that its own voting base supports. When it comes to, the political participation, listen to the voters. That's what the politicians are supposed to do. But, so, for instance, right, I'm just going to give universal health care, right? Poll of Americans, 60% of Americans want some form of universal health care. Whether it's a single-payer system, or whether it's a public option, or whether it's expanded Obamacare. The majority of voters, and a good portion of Republican voters at that, come on, he's going to run at me, do support that notion. But there is not a single GOP senator or congressman that would likely vote for any policy measure that supports one of those things. How is that the case when... Ooh, that's cool. How can that be the case if they are supposed to be listening to the voters? That's the argument against the America, or at least the American political system, being pluralist in nature. Oh, look, it's this guy. Boom. Oh boy. Okay, I got two of them. They're gonna slow you down, kill you. Got him. Boom. Cool. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. However, I would argue that while yes, there are some Democrats out there who do seem to go against the will of the Democratic voters, Joe Manchin, to name one at least, I would argue that when Republican officials seem to ignore the will of the voter more often.
Come back here.
Anyways, moving off of that, though, that's the pluralist view. It's not necessarily working as intended. So, moving on. Elite managerial and class theories. So the elite managerial theory, though, right? And the elite managerial theory, if you remember, splits society and power dynamics into the elite managers, right? Versus the masses. Ooh, excuse me. That was weird. Versus the masses. Elite managerial theory says that when it comes to political participation, really, participation only really takes place amongst the elites, right? It's only the elites that truly participate, and any participation that is engaged in by the masses is purely symbolic. This is actually something that's shared with Marxist class theory as well, is that any time that the masses participate, if it is participation, right, if it can be labeled as participation, it's just a symbolic form of participation. This is new. No, I can't go that way now? What the hell is that nonsense? What's that noise about? Now I'm just lost. No, I gotta go down that way. The elite managerial theory says... Hold on, I gotta jump. Gotta pay attention. Ugh, otherwise I'm gonna die. Ooh. Ooh. Boom! Do this. Do this. Do this. Oh no! There we go. We did it. The elite managerial theory says that political participation actually only takes place between these competing policy groups that are run by, the wealthy, essentially, the wealthy managers. And power is just traded between those individuals. When it comes to the type of participation... Who are you? Who are you? Ow. Stop it. There we go. Oh, poor monster thing. He was just, living his life. I had to kill him. If you really want to look at it, though, right, elite managerial, because, again, to kind of compare this to the real world, the elite managerial theory does seem to kind of take place a little bit within countries all over the planet, nations all over the planet, even in democracies, right? Because basically what you look at the type of participation, and the more sophisticated the type of participation, the less people participate. So we're looking at voting, right? When it comes to voting, lots of people participate. Not as many as one would hope, right? Look at voting rates within the U.S., again, to kind of just exemplify my point once again. Voting rights within the U.S., or voting rates, within the U.S., at most we're looking at, and this was in the most recent election, we hit 70% participation of the eligible voting public. That's high, right? But then move to more sophisticated forms, volunteering for campaigns, you have less. Running for office, you have even less, right? And then running for the big offices, you have maybe a couple hundred people that are even eligible to, well, not eligible, but even able to run for Senate or representative or whatnot. So the elite managerial theory says that explains why, right? It's really the participation is really primarily by the select few elites. And if you really want to put a name to it, I guess, you can look at the Citizens United case in the United States, where it gave a political voice to corporations who have massive amounts of money that they can spend on whomever they want to support. And as a result, can essentially control who runs, who wins, arguably, depending upon how cynical you are. That's elite managerial. Class Marxist theory kind of says the same thing, just puts a little bit more stank on it. All right, whereas elite manager says that it's primarily at the extremist version, it's only the elites that participate and the masses only participate symbolically. But in a more realistic sense, that essentially it's broken down that you need more money to be able to participate in a more serious or sophisticated way, and therefore the masses can't participate to the fullest extent. Class theory says that no, you're only allowed to participate so long as your participation supports the ruling class. He takes an extremely cynical worldview, which again you can't really blame him for it. But he basically says that the masses, or the proletariat as he labels them, can only truly participate through revolution. And there is a little excerpt that I would like to read to you. Based upon, and it comes from the Communist Manifesto, as written by Engels and Marx, and this basically sums up their view. So, zoom in. The communists disdain to conceal their views and aims. They openly declare that their ends can be attained only by the forcible overthrow of all existing social conditions. Let the ruling classes tremble at a communist revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win. Working men of all countries unite. It's like a rally cry. The idea being is that you can't participate now. And so if you do rise up and are stopped, you don't really lose anything because you didn't have anything to lose. The only thing you have to lose is your chains by rising up and throwing them.
Killed by...
Oh, wait. Come on. Shoot a rocket at me. I love it. Well, hello. I've interrupted my video here to ask you that if you're still here, clearly maybe you kind of like this content. So maybe if you would be so kind, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Leave a comment. It really helps out the channel. And now back to the video. So that's the power dynamics on participation. However, let's just talk about generally, what are the types of participation that you can engage in, that one can engage in, that a citizen can engage in? Well, first of all, what is participation? Participation can be defined as those actions of private citizens by which they seek to influence or support government and politics. That's the working definition that we're going to work with, right? And over the years, there have been several different typologies of power that, of participation that have been developed. And we'll start with the traditional kind of typologies, right? Which basically state this. The traditional typologies break down into the apathetics, the spectators, and the gladiators. And based upon the names alone, you can kind of see what types of participation they engage in. So the apathetics, obviously, they don't really participate. Oh, I have to fight an ATST. That's awesome. Geez, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I didn't mean to do that either. Push an ATST. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to concentrate on this for a second. Because, hey, I did it. Cool. We're done. Oh, look at this guy. Like, what did he expect? Back to those names, okay? The apathetics, the spectators, and the gladiators. The apathetics don't do anything. They just sit there. They're the ones, and you could be one of them. You may know a friend who were like, you know what, I don't really like to talk about politics because, I don't know, I just don't, I find it so boring, and and everybody just yells at each other. Those are apathetics. All right. They can also be called inactives or marginals or isolates, right? They don't participate at all. I'm going to talk over the cutscene because none of this is important. We're going to Kashyyyk. That's really all you need to know. So the spectators, however, are kind of like where the vast majority of people probably sit. Minimal involvement, at the very least voting, right? They communicate their political ideologies. They may even try to convince some people to vote with them, right? They do support individuals. Maybe they donate a little bit of money here and there, but it's just a minimal involvement. Spectators, right? And then there's the gladiators. These are like the true activists, okay? These are the ones that go out and actively campaign for politicians that they support, may even run for office, support or start like social institutions, maybe nonprofits, run nonprofits that solve world problems and all of that. Those are the gladiators, right? Gladiators in suits, if you will. There's a couple other typologies as well, though. So you have complete activist campaigners, you have leaders, parochials, and participants that lend themselves to kind of the spectator role. And then we've already talked about apathetics can be called inactives as well as marginals and isolates. I would like you to let me know in the comments where do you think you reside. Are you an apathetic? Are you a spectator? Or are you a gladiator? Don't be ashamed in any one of them, but you know, let me know. And do you think that you can see yourself moving up or down? However, studying participation over the time, a couple other typologies and modern types of participation have kind of developed. And because it's seen as more complex than just do you vote or do you campaign, right? Because of our modern world and all the ways that we are connected, it's a hell of a lot more. You can participate in ways that previously weren't thought of, okay? So you can basically break it down into institutional forms of participation and non-institutional forms of participation. Institutional forms of participation basically means these are the things that were kind of accounted for, the legitimate forms of participation, of influencing, and of letting your voice be heard. Canvassing or campaigning for an individual, right? In order to support a politician that, again, you kind of align with. Generally speaking, when it comes to this form of participation, you're going to see it more likely with those who align themselves with an ideology, partisans, as opposed to kind of the in-betweeners. The in-betweeners aren't likely to campaign or canvass unless there is some sort of in-between candidate that they want to really support. But again, it's going to be primarily the partisans that engage in this form of participation. A more common form of participation that anybody can participate, and arguably all of you are participating in right now, is political discourse. And generally speaking, when it comes to political discourse, if you engage in it, you're going to be more likely to vote and to engage in other forms of political participation. Political discourse is important to a successful democracy, really, because it is the sharing of ideas. Oh, I'll get that one later. I don't need to do that right now. It's the sharing of ideas. It is the, the free exchange of ideas, the free marketplace of ideas. We advance by discussing, the merits between certain arguments. But political discourse is sometimes, and, maybe you've heard this before, polite people don't talk about politics, right? We don't talk about politics in the workplace. Or we don't discuss politics at the dinner table. No, that's exactly where you're supposed to discuss politics, actually. You're supposed to engage in political discourse. It is a form of political participation that is your God-given right. Especially if you live in America, because the First Amendment protects your ability to do so. You're allowed to say, just get away from me. I don't need to deal with you right now. Allows you to engage in that political discourse and not be punished for your own views. And I'm not even going to engage in this whole idea that but cancel culture and all. No. Listen, the First Amendment allows you to say what you want, right? And it prevents you from being punished by the government. But if you say asshole things, right? You may piss some people off, and that's going to be on you. Political discourse is an important form of participation and can be engaged in by all typologies of participators, whether you're apathetic, whether you're a spectator, or whether you are a gladiator. The discourse is important, I would say. Again, you all technically engaged in it right now because we're talking about it. We're talking about politics. The last kind of form of institutional participation that we're going to talk about is social media.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
And here's something that, so I'm reading through a textbook right now, for those of you that aren't in my class. And that textbook is interesting in the sense that it talks about social media and says that social media influences political participation in such a different way now rather than in previous years, because people have become legitimate participators, right? And it makes the case, right? The case has been made that social media is more of a participation in the political, what does this do? Is more active. Those who engage in, I know what's going to happen right now.
Kind of comforting.
When it comes to
I agree. This place is special.
political participation on social media, right? Some experts have made the argument in the very beginning that it's more engaging because you actively need to choose what to look at, right? You need to choose. Ooh, look at me, going off Darth Maul. You actively need to choose where to look and who to support and what to research. I am of the viewpoint that social media has has actually had the opposite effect. It disengages. It actively disengages, and all you need to do is look at the what's it called, Cambridge Analytica scandal, where one company basically through Facebook was able to collect data points on everybody within a country, whether it was Great Britain or whether it was the US or what have you, right? And through those data points, we're able to label what they called persuadables. That's what they called them. And in their mind, persuadables were groups of people. Persuadables were groups of people. How do I, can I? Nope. Can I? No, I can't do that? Okay. How come I can't? Oh, because it's going up. I'm an idiot. And the persuadables were people that this company, this corporation, identified as easily manipulated, essentially. And all they needed to do was create what were essentially memes to get them riled up and angry at whomever they wanted them to be riled up and angry at in order to influence their vote. And the Cambridge Analytica scandal has a hand in the Brexit campaign and the Donald Trump's 2016 run for president. Cambridge Analytica was broken up by British authorities for violations in, data collection and all that. That doesn't mean that a corporation like Cambridge Analytica doesn't exist today. So, social media is kind of the black sheep of the institutional forms of political participation. Useful when used appropriately, but very easily can be used unethically and provide undue influence, if you will. So, non-institutional. Non-institutional is basically forms of participation that we are engaged in kind of right now in this game, right? It's kind of breaking the law or doing things that rile people up or what have you, right? Graffiti is like a really simple form, right? Writing, or if you're like Banksy, right? Banksy is a kind of social commentary graffiti artist, and his stuff is, it speaks to people. It really does, and it has some really deep meanings behind it. Well, that's like a really easy kind of, all right, yeah, you're breaking the law, but it's maybe it's not accounted for, but you are influencing minds, and you are participating in the political process. He has a political viewpoint, and he's making his point through his art. Or her art, whoever Banksy is. Then you could step it up, and you could protests and demonstrations through social movements. And those forms of political participation, depending upon the nation you live in, are either perfectly legal, like in the U.S. Ooh, boy, look at the empires here. Or illegal in maybe some authoritarian or totalitarian states, right? Demonstrations over the summer of 2020, the Black Lives Matter demonstrations, those are a really, really good example of, protests and demonstrations in non-institutional forms of political participation. And just movements in general, right? Social movements, political movements, but then also revolutionary movements, resistance movements. They are also considered non-institutional forms of political participation. Hence the loose connection to this game. Because we are rebels, right? Fighting against the empire. We are participating in a non-institutional form of participation. Cal Kestis here can absolutely be designated a gladiator, because he is, in fact, literally a gladiator. Participation can... Again, being studied, there are, beyond just political participation and political engagement, which is like that traditional form that we've been talking about, there are other forms of engagement. Civic engagement, right? This is the type of person who's going to be like, no, you know what, government's not going to do it, so I'm going to do it, right?
You can't count on God for Jack. He pretty much told me so himself. Now come on, if we don't save those monks, no one will.
That's the type of civic engagement, right? Again, you're going to see the gladiators in that role. Cognitive engagement, staying informed, and just watching the news and engaging in political discourse. Just because you're not voting or supporting doesn't mean you're not engaged in the political process. That debate and political discourse, as I've mentioned before, is fairly important to the process. And finally, creating a public voice, which is easier now than ever before, thanks to that big boogaboo that I just talked about, social media. I mean, revolutions have been started using social media. Some awful things have also happened as a result of social media. But creating those outputs for a political ideology anyone has more access today than anyone before in human history. I mean, you have more power in your pocket than the basic peasant did back in feudalist society. Could ever have imagined, right? You have the same amount of power and reach that kings and monarchs did. Just sit on that. Tell me what you think about that. And with that, I have covered everything I need to cover. Let me just climb this AT-AT, and then I think I'm going to pause the game and do a little bit of a wrap-up. And with that, thank you so much for participating in this political discourse that we've been having on the Big Brain Relax and Learn. I really do appreciate you paying attention and participating in the conversation with me. Can I entreat you to please participate in the comment section down below. However, if you do like this content, please like, subscribe. It allows me to do more and bigger and better things with this series that I am making. And I hope that you have a wonderful time, doing whatever you're doing after this video ends. But please, I'll see you next time on the Big Brain Relax and Learn, streamed every Monday night, 10 p.m. at Twitch. I'll see you then.